Okay, so our next tools, moving away from the pen stuff, in the text, we're now going to do the line and the shape. Now, the line tool, it is quite helpful. I find I use it more than I would have realized. Most of the time when I'm making posters, for some reason I like divisions like that. So, like most things, when you change your tool to a new one, the items up here are going to change. So you might want to look through and see what's available for the changes. In general, for lines, it's meant to be a straight line for this particular one. You need to click and hold, so basically click once and it'll show you all of these different options. Now you can automatically, if you know exactly what size you need, you can simply punch in the number. You can tell what angle to be if you don't want it straight, and you can then just click it and it'll give you that default. If you want to make it yourself, then rather than clicking just once, if you click and hold and then drag out, you can get whatever line you want without knowing exactly what the length is, or possibly the angle. So if you hold the shift key down, that's when you can get a perfectly straight line. So that is, just super horizontal, no angle in it. But otherwise, wherever you click, you can get whatever angle you want, but it is going to be a straight line. And then if you can, like a lot of things in Illustrator, if you click the shift key, you can see that it's bouncing. Even if I'm over here, if I'm up past, it'll jump up. But basically what it'll do is the shift key lets you get directly to perfect horizontal, to a 45-degree, or a perfect vertical. So those are the three options with the shift key. And then you just click and hold and you've got your 2 points. So the line is made out of 2 points. If you wish to extend it, you can use the direct selection tool to select that last one of the points. You can see this one's open, this one's closed now, and then I can move it around at will, or I can use my arrow keys to nudge it along. Alright. Now up here, if I go back to the line tool, you'll see that there are some things that you can change. So the first one being, you can make it thicker. You can change the stroke up here. You can change the uniformity of what kind of line it looks like. So if I just drag this one and I make it thicker so you can actually see the difference, you can see that their lines don't have to be perfectly straight. They can actually have a lot of variation amongst them. And then the other thing you can change is up here with the brush definition. There are some real basic defaults here, and they'll give you some things that are slightly more calligraphic, some things that are very straight, some things that are textured, and so there's some real simple basic ones here. If you wish to find more, you need to go up to this tiny menu and open up your brush library, and there's a whole lot of other ones here that you can choose from. So you might want to take a look just so you get an idea. Some of them are really trite. You have to kind of be careful about how you use them because they can be overused and everybody knows where to get them from. But you can definitely go through. Sometimes it might just inspire you to create something of your own, but in general, keep an eye on the things up here that you can change and manipulate just based on it. So again, this doesn't look like a line, right? But it actually is. So you can click back and forth between the look of things. I would often recommend after you make a line that you like, in terms of its proper length, possibly angle, you might want to duplicate that and try out a bunch of different types. Now if we move on to the shapes, this one has similar amounts of things that you can change up here, and there are a lot of presets. So you might want to just test them, look around, and it's a similar situation as with the line. If you click once, it'll give you the variables here that it allows. So here you can say exactly what size of a rectangle you would like. Otherwise, you just click and hold and drag out to be the size that you wish to be. The rounded rectangle has a second thing that you'd have to consider, and that would be the corner radius. The larger the number, the bigger the curve. So you can see the curve at the corners there. Now, once you've set it once, it'll stay there. So you don't have to stick with the exact size that's in the default, default for it now. But if you want this bigger, you'll have to change that number there. The ellipse tool will, of course, either make ellipses or circles. For the ellipse, you can make whatever size ellipse you want. If you want a perfect circle, you must hit the Shift key, though. And something about that key is that you will need to, if you ever want to start a circle from a specific point, let's say the center here, you need to hold the Option key down as well as the Shift key, and then pull out, and you will get that perfect circle. Polygon, it's pretty similar. These are all fairly similar to what Photoshop is doing, so none of these will probably feel too new. But if you click once again, this one tells you how large you need it, how many sides you want. But unlike the one in Photoshop, that does not create a star. If you want a star, it's its own tool. So here, again, you need to choose your outer radius, your inner radius, and then how many points you wish it to have. And then there you go. Now, I should mention that at any point, if you make an incorrect size on a shape, you simply select it with the normal selection tool and click one of the corners, hold the Shift key, and then as you pull, you will get, of course, a different size. So you're never stuck with what you initially, you don't have to make a new one, you simply just change it. I recommend heavily to stay away from the flare tool. It's kind of a gimmick, and you see it, in more amateurish design, so I would generally say avoid it. You can mess around with it if you want, but overall, I can tell you most designers will kind of roll their eyes, whether that's good or bad, when they see it, just because it's for whatever reason, not many professionals use it. When they do use it, it's very difficult to tell that they've used it oftentimes. So that's it for the shape tools. Just remember that when you use them, there are different things here that you can change. So it's not a lot, but you can change, of course, the fill color, and I'll be getting to the color area, so don't worry too much about that yet. But you can click at least on the defaults. If you really want to experiment with the swatch library, these are called swatches up here. You can, of course, open up the libraries, and there's a bunch of preset colors, and I'll be talking more about the swatches in a little bit. So for now, I'll leave that. But you can also just use the color picker down here. It's very similar to how Photoshop worked, where you can click anywhere you want to select the color that you need. Other than that, there's the stroke. Remember that with the stroke, that the outer bounding box is the actual size of the box. If you want that stroke to be in a different placement, you will need to change the alignment of the stroke. So just watch carefully at that square. If I align the stroke to the inside, it pushes the black in. If I align it to the outside, it pushes it out. I had mentioned when expanding text for in the last couple tutorials that you have to change the default for text will not allow stroke to be on the inside or outside. It puts it smack dab on the center line, and that's partly why if you want text stroked in either the outside or inside, you actually have to expand it and make it a shape, and then you can mess around with it in this way. So in the same way here, the strokes can change to whatever you would like them to be. You can change the opacity and all that good stuff. The other thing that pops up here, I'm going to make a couple shapes just so you can see what happens. When you have a couple shapes, you can actually align them. So your screen might be slightly bigger than mine. I'm just working on a laptop here, but if we open up this panel, you can align things. So if you want something perfectly aligned, you just need to select them and they will align. So this might be something that you'll need in the future. So just know, rather than trying to carefully move things around, you can actually avoid all that and just use the alignment panel, and it will get you far quicker than, in my opinion, than just moving some things around. The transform, the shape tool, well, I'll probably leave that for now, but you can, manipulate quite a few things with this tool just right here. You can also, it's in some of the tools over here, but you can do some rotation. You can change the corners of things very particularly. Some of these ones you might want to consider, doing this in other places, but you might want to scale the corners and scale the strokes and effects so that they are equal along all of the corners rather than just in one spot. Trying to think of what else is up here that we need to think about. The transform tool will, again, that'll change your width and height if you want to. You sometimes will need to constrain the width and the height so that these two move in unison. You can also, the X and the Y axis is just positioning. So if I switch just to a 4, it's going to move it over. If I switch the Y, that's changing the verticality. So, that's something that you can do again, though. That's only if you really know the specific area. Most of the time, you could probably just move it with the selection tool. And again, you can also do the rotation here as well as skewing things. And I think that's probably about it. All along, of course, the way we're looking at layers, and you can see the relationships of those things as well.